What you're about to hear changes everything. In just a few minutes, you will understand why the battlefield shifted overnight, and why Israeli forces faced losses they never saw coming. Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel, and today we're diving into a fast, moving and deeply tense development in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, where reports indicate that Israeli forces have suffered unexpected losses after Palestinian armed groups deployed new and more advanced weaponry on the battlefield. This shift has not only changed the tone of the ongoing clashes, but has also raised difficult questions about intelligence failures, evolving tactics, and the growing capabilities of non-state armed groups operating in some of the most contested areas of the region. In recent decades, Israel has relied heavily on its advanced surveillance tools, precision air power, and sophisticated ground systems to maintain a tactical advantage. But the newest reports reveal a different picture on the ground, where Israeli units faced sudden attacks that used weapons they had not fully anticipated. Soldiers reported intense encounters in narrow alleys, along border zones, and inside areas known for frequent clashes, but this time the resistance they encountered was markedly more advanced, more coordinated, and far more dangerous. Field commanders acknowledged that several Israeli armored vehicles, including lightly protected transport carriers, were struck with unexpected force. The projectiles that hit them were not simple homemade weapons or lightly improvised explosives. Instead, analysts believe Palestinian fighters used a combination of newly smuggled anti-armor systems, modified drones, and enhanced explosive devices designed with technical precision. These weapons, combined with increased training and preparation, created a scenario Israeli planners had not seen at this level in years. Reports from the ground highlight the use of short-range anti-armor rockets that appear to have been upgraded with stronger penetration capabilities. These rockets, when fired from concealed positions, caught several Israeli patrols off guard. The strikes were powerful enough to breach armor that had previously been considered secure against the munitions typically used by Palestinian groups. This shift suggests the introduction of either foreign-supplied munitions or newly engineered local variants based on advanced designs. Israeli troops involved in the clashes described moments of chaos as dust, smoke, and the shock of explosions threw combat formations into confusion. Medics rushed to pull wounded soldiers from smoldering vehicles. Communications teams struggled to restore clarity, while commanders demanded real-time updates on what type of weapons were being used. The speed and precision of these attacks indicated that Palestinian units had trained for weeks, if not months, to synchronize their strikes with maximum effect. Intelligence sources revealed that Israeli analysts had been monitoring signs of weapon smuggling through tunnels, sea routes, and cross-border supply networks. But the scale and quality of the new weaponry show that certain shipments were either underestimated or entirely missed. Many of the new weapons were deployed simultaneously across multiple points of contact, making the situation even more challenging. The ability to launch coordinated ambushes using advanced weapons displays a level of operational maturity not previously seen in some of these armed factions. Among the most concerning developments was the use of tactical drones outfitted with explosive charges. These small drones flew low, maneuvered between buildings, and targeted key Israeli positions with surprising accuracy. Soldiers reported that the drones were harder to detect and destroy than earlier models. Some drones even appeared to have been pre-programmed with specific routes, allowing them to bypass electronic jamming attempts and strike with lethal precision. This new drone capability represents a significant tactical problem for Israel. The country's defense forces have heavily invested in counter-drone measures, but the newest models appear to use frequencies and software that evade many existing systems. That means Palestinian groups have either received technical assistance from more sophisticated allies or developed localized expertise that rivals the technological capabilities of state militaries. For Israeli units on the ground, these drones forced a complete change in how patrols move, communicate, and take cover. Explosive devices planted along roads and building entrances were also reported to be more advanced than earlier designs. Instead of simple pressure plates or timed detonators, many devices incorporated remote triggers, dual-stage explosives, and fragmentation enhancers intended to maximize casualties. Israeli forces clearing these devices faced intense difficulty because the bombs were expertly concealed and often linked together in complex networks that multiplied their effectiveness. In one incident described by field personnel, an Israeli armored jeep was traveling along a narrow urban road when a concealed explosive detonated beneath it. As troops attempted to evacuate the damaged vehicle, a second explosive device activated nearby, creating a deadly trap. This kind of multi-layered ambush demonstrates a level of planning requiring detailed reconnaissance and experienced bomb makers familiar with Israeli movement patterns. These attacks also highlight the psychological impact on Israeli forces. Soldiers entering conflict zones already operate under immense stress, but the presence of unpredictable and highly lethal new weapons has added another layer of tension. The sudden emergence of these capabilities has forced units to revise their tactics and adopt new protective measures. For many troops, it's not just the weapons themselves, but the uncertainty surrounding how many more such systems the Palestinian groups may possess. Political leaders in Israel responded with urgency, calling for enhanced intelligence operations, expanded surveillance missions, and accelerated procurement of new counter-weapon systems. Officials emphasized that Israel would adapt quickly and would not allow these developments to shift strategic control on the ground. However, behind closed doors, analysts acknowledge that these new weapons have complicated an already volatile situation and may require months of adjustments to fully counter. Palestinian groups celebrated what they called a significant military achievement. Statements released by their spokespeople described the operations as proof that resistance forces are capable of innovating and evolving despite heavy restrictions and constant surveillance. They framed their success as a blow to what they view as a long-standing imbalance of power, arguing that their new capabilities represent a growing confidence in their ability to confront Israel's technologically superior military. This perspective has fueled strong reactions across the region. Supporters of Palestinian groups praised the attacks as evidence of resilience and ingenuity. Opponents condemned the use of advanced weaponry by non-state actors, warning that such developments could escalate tensions into broader regional conflict. International observers expressed concern about the intensification of violence and the potential for more sophisticated weapons to enter the conflict. The introduction of these weapons raises important questions about where the technology originated. Some defense analysts suspect smuggling networks linked to foreign countries with experience in weapons manufacturing. Others believe local engineers may be using online resources, captured components, and reverse-engineered parts to create hybrid systems. Either scenario suggests that Palestinian groups have become more resourceful and determined to challenge Israel's military dominance. For Israel, this moment serves as a wake-up call. Technological superiority alone is no longer enough to guarantee safety on the battlefield. As smaller groups gain access to tools once reserved for state militaries, the lines between conventional and asymmetric warfare become increasingly blurred. Israeli planners must now analyze every engagement with the awareness that new threats can emerge at any time, in any location, from any direction. The clashes also underline the shifting nature of modern conflict, where precision explosives, drones, and anti-armor systems can be manufactured or modified at relatively low cost. This accessibility gives less equipped forces the ability to inflict disproportionate damage, which in turn shapes political negotiations, security calculations, and military responses. When fighters with limited resources can disable a multi-million-dollar vehicle with a weapon costing only hundreds of dollars, the strategic implications are enormous. The losses suffered by Israeli forces have already sparked debates inside the military establishment. Some retired commanders argue that ground operations need to be reduced until new countermeasures are introduced. Others insist that retreating or slowing operations could embolden Palestinian groups and encourage further attacks. This internal debate has created pressure on decision makers to adjust strategy without appearing vulnerable. Meanwhile, Palestinian fighters appear to be studying every move made by Israeli forces. They monitor vehicle patterns, radio frequencies, and troop rotations. They analyze the timing of patrols, identify blind spots in surveillance coverage, and prepare ambush sites weeks in advance. Their new weapons are only as effective as their intelligence, and recent events suggest they have significantly improved in gathering and interpreting battlefield data. Witnesses inside Palestinian territories noted that workshops and underground facilities have been more active in recent months. Nighttime sounds of machinery, welding, and assembly suggest continuous production of weapons and drones. These observations add credibility to reports that Palestinian engineers are refining their tools with every clash, learning from mistakes, and testing new designs in real time against Israeli defenses. Israel's response has included intensified drone surveillance, expanded checkpoints, and increased air patrols aimed at intercepting smuggling routes. The Navy has been mobilized to inspect potential sea-based supply lines, while ground forces have been instructed to vary their patrol schedules to reduce predictability. These measures may help limit additional weapon shipments, but they do not change the fact that the new weaponry already in Palestinian hands remains a potent threat. Experts warn that this shift could inspire other armed groups around the world. When small factions successfully challenge a powerful military using innovative technologies, it sends a message that traditional power dynamics can be disrupted. Militants in other regions have already shown interest in low-cost drones and improvised anti-armor systems, and what happens in this conflict may influence tactics far beyond the Middle East. The humanitarian implications are also severe. Intensified clashes mean increased risks for civilians caught in the crossfire. The deployment of more lethal weapons in densely populated areas raises the likelihood of unintended casualties. International aid organizations have urged all parties to exercise restraint, but the reality on the ground suggests that neither side is willing to de-escalate, while the balance of power remains uncertain. Israeli families, already strained by years of conflict, reacted with shock and anger to news of the losses. Military funerals were held for several soldiers, drawing crowds of grieving relatives who demanded stronger protection for troops. The emotional impact of these events has added pressure on political leaders to respond with decisive and forceful action. But every action carries risks, and escalation could trigger even more devastating confrontations. Palestinian families, too, brace for retaliation. Whenever Israeli forces suffer casualties, experience shows that military operations intensify. Civilians in Gaza and the West Bank live with the constant fear of airstrikes, raids, and expanded incursions. For them, the deployment of new weapons brings mixed feelings. A sense of pride for resisting occupation, but also fear of severe repercussions. As this high-stakes situation unfolds, diplomats in the region have attempted to intervene. Some countries have offered to mediate discussions aimed at reducing tensions, but both sides remain firmly entrenched in their positions. Israel refuses to negotiate under pressure or in the face of attacks, while Palestinian groups insist they will not halt operations until political demands are addressed. This deadlock makes meaningful progress extremely difficult. Technically,